It was past sunset when Daniel Carter pulled his car into the driveway of the house he had bought 2 months earlier. The neighborhood looked calm, modern, and almost too quiet. The house itself stood at the end of a cul-de-sac, 2 stories tall with wide windows and a sleek design. To anyone else it looked perfect, clean lines, white walls, and a large yard. But to Daniel it felt strangely hollow. He had just moved from Chicago after his divorce. The house was supposed to be a fresh start. He had found it at an auction for a surprisingly low price, and although the agent had been vague about the reason for the discount, Daniel didn't care. He needed space and silence. He needed somewhere that didn't remind him of his past. As he turned the key in the lock and stepped inside, the faint smell of dust and something metallic touched his nose. He switched on the lights. Nothing. The power hadn't been activated yet. He sighed and used his phone's flashlight to look around. "Guess it's just you and me," he muttered, his voice echoing faintly in the empty hall. The rooms were bare, but the structure was impressive. A long corridor led to the living room, the kitchen to the right, a staircase to the left. Everything was clean, almost too clean. He noticed the walls looked freshly painted. But something about the color felt off, as if someone had tried to hide something beneath. He spent the evening unpacking essentials and set up a small mattress in the living room. The night air grew colder, and every sound in the house seemed amplified. Pipes groaned, the wooden floor creaked. Still, Daniel was exhausted. Around midnight, he heard something soft, like a whisper. He sat up, heart thumping. The sound came from upstairs, faint and broken, almost like someone speaking through static. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. He laughed nervously. "Old house noises, right?" The whisper came again, this time closer, like someone sighing just behind him. He spun around. Nothing. Just his boxes and the empty dark corners of the living room. He left a light on, lay back down, and told himself it was all in his head. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds, chasing away the unease. He made coffee and walked around the house to inspect it in daylight. The upstairs hallway had 4 doors. One was a master bedroom, another a guest room, the third a study, and the fourth, he tried the knob. It didn't move. Locked. That was strange. He didn't remember any mention of a locked room. He crouched and looked at the keyhole. Nothing but darkness inside. Probably a utility closet, he said to himself. But something about the chill seeping from under the door made him uneasy. Later that week, the power was activated, and Daniel began working remotely from home. He was a graphic designer, often sitting for long hours in front of his computer. The house was silent most of the time, except at night. Every night around 2:15 a.m., he would hear it again. The whisper. Always faint, always close, always the same tone. Sad, broken. Sometimes it sounded like a woman crying, sometimes like someone whispering his name. Daniel. He stopped sleeping with the lights off. One evening, his friend Eric visited to help him assemble furniture. "Man, this place is huge," Eric said, looking around. "Can't believe you got it for that price." "Yeah, right? Feels too good to be true," Daniel said with a weak smile. As they carried a box upstairs, Eric stopped near the locked door. "What's this one?" "No idea." "Been locked since I moved in." Eric knelt, trying the handle. "You didn't ask the realtor for a key?" "She said the previous owner didn't leave one." Eric frowned. "You should probably change that. What if there's something valuable or dangerous inside?" Daniel shrugged. "I'll deal with it later." That night after Eric left, Daniel dreamt of the door. In his dream, he was standing before it, hearing muffled crying from inside. He reached for the knob, and the crying stopped. A woman's whisper brushed against his ear. "Don't open it." He woke up drenched in sweat. The digital clock read 2:15 a.m. He stared at the ceiling, listening. The whisper came again, clear this time, right beside him. "Please, help me!" Daniel bolted upright. "Who's there?" The lights flickered. The whisper faded. The next day, Daniel went to the hardware store and bought a new lock-picking kit. Curiosity gnawed at him. That door was part of his house, after all. Why shouldn't he open it? That evening, as rain lashed against the windows, he sat before the locked door, tools in hand. His heart pounded with each twist of the pick. The lock clicked. The door creaked open, releasing a cold, stale gust of air. The room beyond was small and dim. Dust floated in the flashlight beam. There was an old rocking chair, a shattered mirror, and dark stains on the floorboards. The smell of metal, strong and bitter. He stepped inside. "Hello?" The rocking chair moved slightly, as if touched by a breeze. A faint hum filled the room. Then, on the wall opposite him, words appeared, slowly forming in the dust. "Get out." Daniel stumbled back, flashlight shaking. No, this isn't real." He backed out, slammed the door shut, and locked it again. But from that night onward, the house changed. Shadows seemed to linger longer. The temperature dropped in certain rooms. Doors opened on their own. And the whisper, no longer faint, spoke clearer each night. You shouldn't have opened it. He tried to ignore it. He threw himself into work, played loud music, stayed out late. But the house wanted his attention. One night, while video calling a client, the camera on his laptop began to flicker. For a second, the reflection behind him showed a figure, a pale woman with long black hair standing at the top of the stairs. He turned instantly. No one was there. He checked the footage. Nothing. He began researching the address online. After hours of digging, he found an old news article from 2016. Young couple found dead in suburban home. Authorities rule it a murder-suicide. The wife, Laura Jennings, was found in a locked bedroom. The husband, Mark Jennings, was found downstairs with self-inflicted wounds. Neighbors reported hearing screams the night before. The house address was the same. Daniel froze. The locked room. The crying. The whispering woman. He couldn't sleep that night. Every sound made him flinch. Around 3 a.m., his phone buzzed, an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Static, and then a voice, soft, trembling, and unmistakably female. "Why did you open the door?" He hung up instantly. The next morning, he packed his things. He couldn't stay. But as he walked toward the front door, the knob wouldn't turn. The lock refused to open. He checked the windows, all sealed tight. His phone battery drained in seconds. Panic set in. "Okay, calm down," he whispered to himself. "It's just the house. I'll find a way." The lights flickered again and a low hum spread through the walls. Then faintly from upstairs came the sound of the rocking chair moving. Creak, creak, creak. He forced himself to move. Each step up the stairs felt heavier. The door to the locked room was wide open now. The air around it shimmered with cold. Inside, the mirror was no longer broken. It stood whole, clean, and reflective. In it, Daniel saw his own face, pale, terrified, and behind him, the woman. "Laura," he whispered. Her eyes met his in the reflection, hollow and endless. "You set me free," she said softly. "Now take my place." Before he could move, invisible hands pushed him forward. The door slammed shut behind him. He screamed, pounding on the door, but the sound was swallowed by the walls. The mirror rippled like water, and the reflection of the room twisted, blood spreading across the floor. The chair rocking violently. Downstairs. The lights burst one by one until the house was consumed by darkness. Days later, Eric came by to check on his friend. The car was still in the driveway. The house was locked, but a faint light glowed from the upstairs window. He called Daniel's name. No answer. He forced open the front door, calling again. Silence. He climbed the stairs and noticed the once-locked room door now slightly ajar. He pushed it open. The room was empty. Only the mirror stood in the corner, spotless and cold. Eric looked at his reflection, only it wasn't alone. Behind him stood Daniel, pale and expressionless. Eric spun around. Nothing. When he turned back, the reflection was smiling. That night, neighbors saw lights flickering in the house again. Some said they heard whispering through the walls. A week later, the property listing appeared online once more. Modern home for sale, recently renovated, ready for move-in. No one mentioned the previous owner, but if you stood near the upstairs window on a quiet night, you could still hear it, soft, broken, and distant. "Please, don't open the door."